you know?
So at its core, and I know it's hard to distill down to one thing, it's complex, but why isn't Russell a Seahawk today?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, to me, it speaks to a few things. One is the value of quarterbacks in the modern NFL. I think when the Aaron Rodgers news came down and it looked like Russell was going to make $50 million a season in that neighborhood, probably slightly above it, I think it made the current situation untenable. I think we've seen with different teams over and over that when you pay a quarterback a lot of money, generally it's difficult, you know, to fashion a championship roster around them. I think some of his complaints about the offensive line were not only fair, but, you know, something that he felt deep inside his bones, you know, enough to bring it up after winning Man of the Year, you know, the year before this one. And I think it also speaks to the state of the team. In my opinion, they, you know, overachieved last year on defense. They have a lot of good offensive skill position players. But I didn't see this team or this roster as a Super Bowl contending one. I saw them as a team whose ceiling was making the playoffs, maybe winning one game. And I was a little bit surprised at some of the reaction, you know, to the move, because to me, what the choices are, keep him, make another run at it, win between 8 and 10 games and call it a day, and then start the rebuilding process, or you can start it now and get closer to what you really want, which is another crack at the Super Bowl.
So you think they did the right thing?
I do, and I actually think they got pretty good value compared to, you know, what happened last season and how I thought his value had dropped in terms of people I spoke to around the league. You know, I think their best case scenario heading into this season with him as their quarterback, you know, barring some sort of miraculous scenario, was one playoff win. And I don't think it was going to get better from there. I think in some ways people are still sort of stuck on him from 4 or 5 years ago and the kind of player he was then.
Well, that happens all the time, right? I mean, like we're seeing that with Bobby Wagner, I think, and some of the surprise around the league there where they're, oh my God, Bobby Wagner, like, well, you haven't been watching him too carefully over the last few years. But let me ask you a question then, Greg. If you think the Seahawks ceiling was a first round, maybe one win, second round exit, what's the Broncos ceiling now? Is it any different?
I think it's a little higher. I think they have a more complete team. I think they have more weapons offensively. I think they're a little bit better up front. But I do think that that's some sort of recency bias, right? Like if I'm the Broncos, I'm thinking, okay, look what happened in Tampa when Tom Brady went there. Look what happened with the Los Angeles Rams when Matthew Stafford went there. And I think what the last 2 years have done is sort of opened up the idea for executives that you can get the piece that matters the most in the NFL, slot them into a team that's already good, and have a better chance to win the Super Bowl. In some ways, I think both teams made the right decision. You know, the Broncos are looking at this like now we have a chance to win. You look at the AFC, obviously the Bengals are going to be good. I like the Bills a lot. The Chiefs should be in the mix. But I think this elevates them into sort of that muddled top part of the picture. And I think taking a swing is not a bad thing when you look at the list of quarterbacks that have come through there, besides Peyton Manning, you know, essentially since John Elway retired, which is like the entirety of our adult lives. And so I can see why they made that move. Do I think they'll win the Super Bowl? I wouldn't bet on it, but I think they have a better chance today than they did, you know, 2 days ago.
Well, for sure, yeah. Talking to Greg Bishop from Sports Illustrated here on the Mike Salk Show. Who do you think is the next? Well, who starts the next game at quarterback for the Seahawks, and who is the next long-term answer at quarterback for the Seahawks?
Oh man, that's a great question. You know, I would start by saying my understanding is John Snyder loved Drew Lock coming out of college. That's something I didn't hear this week. It's something I heard years ago, and I kind of filed it away in the back of my mind. Now, I have not spoken to John about that, so it's just things I've heard from other people. But I do think that he was, you know, very interested in Lock's skill set. I do think he was very intrigued by what he could do. So my guess is Drew Lock is their starter to open next season. But I say that hesitantly because I saw Drew Lock play in the NFL. And I think if you watched him play for the Broncos and you saw the weapons around him and you saw what happened and what they did at quarterback, it definitely indicated a lack of confidence or belief in him. I don't think there's a ton of reason to be optimistic that he's going to quarterback a playoff team. So I wouldn't say that they're done, but I do think the fact that John liked him or that, people told me John liked him probably played into like at least taking a look and seeing what's there.
Mm-hmm.
You still have DK Metcalf. Now you have Noah Fant. I mean, it's not like they don't have any players left, but I think it seems like sort of an experiment to see how it will go, ultimately leading to the kind of rebuild that I think has been coming for a while now.